privilege to come together and worship, encourage, and listen to the Word of God in the midst of this suffering, in the midst of a pandemic. Even many churches in our place, Nagaland, small state in India, some of the town churches are closed and they continue with online service because of this pandemic. And many servants of God, they lost their life during this time, and many families are going through difficult times. And so this story reminds us of God's faithfulness in the midst of suffering, in the midst of trials. As I read this 2 Kings, I preached even last month on the same chapter, but toward the end of this chapter, how God works in a very special way for His people and for His children. And even this afternoon, I'm going to share from this 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 to 7, how God's blessing is extravagant, beyond measure, and then beyond our expectation. Actually, the widow wants only to pay her debts. But after paying her debts, there was a remaining, because Elisha said, you and your sons can keep on surviving with that money by selling. Actually, she said, I want to pay my husband's debt. See, we don't know how much, but she has to pay the debt because her husband passed away, unfortunately. And so her concern was only how to recover the debt. Because her sons, the creditor, maybe the rich family or the rich man, is going to take her two sons and make them servants. Because we see in the book of Leviticus chapter 25, and even in the book of Amos, people were mistreating in that way. When the debt is not repaid, all their family, their children become slaves. The children become slaves of those masters. But here we see that the blessings was more than her expectation. See, her expectation. And so, verse 1, it said, now the wife of one of the sons of the prophets cried to Elisha, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord, but the creditors has come to take away my two sons to be his slaves, to be his servants. As I said before, God's people are not immune to death, are not immune to suffering, are not immune to poverty, are not immune to trials and sickness. We all go through like any others. But God is always on the side of His children. You may face death, you may face suffering, you may face sickness, you may face poverty. But still, He's on the throne. God is still on the throne, watching over His children, watching over His people. And so, we don't know how the man borrowed, the credit went. But as we read in chapter 5, we see that there was famine, right? And even, in chapter 4, that there was famine. And so maybe in order to feed his family, maybe he borrowed money. Because there was no sufficient food. Maybe there was no work to do. Or maybe there was no enough financial support. And so maybe he borrowed money from others to feed his family. He did not steal. See, the man of God did not steal. But he was honest. No, he was honest to help out his family in the midst of famine, in the midst of suffering. And so she came to Elisha and she said, no, my husband is dead. And we have a huge amount maybe to repay. And the creditor is coming to take my 2 sons if I don't pay him on time. And so the first lesson that we learn from this widow is that she did not go and ask help from her parents or from her in-laws. See? She did not go to her brother-in-laws or her father-in-law or her parents. But she directly went to the man of God, said, pray for me, do something for me, because I am in need of help. See? I need miracle. How many times, or how often we fail to realize, many times we try to solve the problem by ourselves. See? We ask, we go to our parents, we go to our in-laws, we go to our brothers and sisters and help. But we fail to realize that, God is bigger, greater than, and stronger than our parents, our in-laws, our brothers and sisters. As a man, as a wife of the servant of God, they learn to depend on God. Maybe her husband said, I may go away. But don't let these problems, this pandemic distract you from trusting God. Maybe that's what the husband told her. Don't go to my parents, don't go to your parents. Go to God and go to the man of God. He will help you. He will help you out. He will ask God to open a way for you. See? And so, once her husband died, she directly went to Elisha, to the man of God, because she knew that Elisha is a man that is used by God, because he performed many miracles. And so she went and asked Elisha to help her. So the first principle or the first application or practical lesson that we'll need to learn from this story is that never trust anyone. See? You have a problem, go to God. You have a difficult situation, ask God to deliver you. And He will help you. And so she went, and then in verse 2, and Elisha said to her, what shall I do for you? Tell me what you have in your house. See, what you have in your house. Now, what shall I do for you? No, what shall I do for you? What do you want me to do for you? And what do you have in your house? No, there are certain things that we need to do. We can pray, right? We can trust God. See, we can use the gift that God has given to us. Many times we think that, I don't have any gift. No, I cannot work for God. I cannot minister. You know what God asked Moses? What do you have in your hand? And then Moses said, a dry stick. No, a dry stick, branch. Maybe to control the sheep, his father-in-law sheep, Jethro. And then God said, what do you have? And he said, just useless branch, or useless rod, useless stick. It's a dead stick. And then God used that dead stick to deliver Israel and then to perform miracle, to teach a lesson to Pharaoh that God can do anything. Nothing is impossible in the sight of God. And so Elisha asked, what do you have? And then the widow said, nothing much. No, nothing much. Just a small, maybe, a small amount of oil. Maybe olive oil. Only that much I have. But what about the big amount, the big debts that I have comparing to the small olive oil that I have? See? Cannot do anything. Isn't that it? She thought that the small olive oil is nothing. That's nothing comparing to the huge amount, the money that I need to pay. God always wants us to trust Him, with whatever we have, whatever you have, whatever I have. We may think that that is insignificant, useless. Useless. Comparing to the huge or comparing to the big problem and difficulties that comes into our life. And so Elisha said, what do you have? And she said, maybe just a small amount of oil. Olive oil, that's all I have. That's all I have. And then Elisha said, no, let's ask God. No, let's ask God to perform miracle. And so Elisha said, and then the woman said, your servant has nothing in the house except a jar of oil. Then Elisha said, go outside, borrow vessels from all your neighbors, empty vessels, and not too few. Then go in and shut the door behind yourself and your sons, and pour into all these vessels. And when one is full, set it aside. Now Elisha said, go to your house, close the door. And then, go and borrow empty vessels from your neighbors. As much as you can. As much as you can. And then he said, go and then shut the door. And then pour the jar of oil into the vessels, empty vessels. Now, this shows that the miracle is not performed by Elisha, because Elisha was not there inside the house. See, Elisha was just an instrument that God used to tell this woman. It was not performed by Elisha, because he just said, go to your house, shut the door, and then start pouring the jar of oil. See, that tells us that the miracle is not by Elisha. The miracle is performed by God. See? It is performed by God. Deliverance is from God. Blessings are from Him. Healing is from God. Protection is from God. Salvation is from God. Security is from God. Not from any others. No, not from any others. And so, this teaches us that God is a God who performed miracle. Who performed miracle. It was not Elisha. The credit does not go to Elisha, because he was not there when the oil increased. Elisha was not there when the oil increased. It was God, because God is the source of everything. God is the source of blessings. See? He is the fountain. He is the origin. And so, when she asked her son to borrow vessels from their neighbors, and then maybe they brought so many vessels, and then they closed the door, and then as they were told by Elisha, they started pouring. And the one vessel is full, but the oil is still flowing. So again, shifted to another vessel, and it was full, but it's still flowing. They shifted to another vessel. Keep on flowing. And then the vessels are about to be filled, all the vessels. And then the mother said, go and ask, go and bring some more vessels. See, we don't have place to put. You see, and the oil keeps on flowing. And then her son said, Mommy, we don't have. No, we borrow from everyone. No, nobody has empty vessels. And when her son said that there is no empty vessels, the oil stopped. See, the oil stopped flowing. The oil stopped flowing. It's an amazing that God is doing something out of nothing. You see? Something out of nothing. And so, after the vessels are full, no, all the vessels are filled with olive oil. And we know that in the Old Testament, olive oil is very important, very precious for cooking, for burning lamb in the temple, for medicinal purpose. It's very, even today, the olive oil is very expensive, right? Virgin olive oil is very expensive, you see. And so they use it for different purpose. And so now they have enough olive oil, enough olive oil. And so after filling all the vessels, the oil stopped flowing. And now they don't know what to do, right? You see, what next? See, what next? Because the vessels are all filled with that expensive and precious olive oil. And so maybe so she opened the door, maybe went to Elisha and said, "My Lord, what shall I do with this one? What do you want me to do? What is the lesson that you want to teach me? Or no, I ask you to help me, maybe to give me money to repay my husband's debt, and then olive oil." And then Elisha said, "Go and sell the olive oil, and then pay the debts, and then there will be remaining." You see, God's blessing is always abundant. You see, God's blessing is always abundant. Because He knows what you need. See, He knows that repaying their debts is not sufficient. They need to live, They need to live. They need to survive. And so Elisha said, "No, there will be a blessing. There will be remaining." And so after paying your debts, you and your sons, your sons will not become a servant. They will not become slave. And then the remaining money, you can survive, because there was famine, as we read toward the end of this chapter 4. There was famine in the land. And so Elisha said, during this pandemic, during this situation, during this famine time, you and your sons can live on with that business, or with that blessing that God pour upon your life. See, upon your life. When we trust God, when we depend on Him, when we rely on Him, He will not leave us alone. He will always make a way. That's the song that we sing. God will make a way. Where there seems to be no way, He will make a way to survive. He will make a way to go through. When the Israelites were, when they came to the edge of this Dead Sea, the ocean, they don't know what to do, because front side is the ocean, back sides are the Egyptians that were following them. And so God parted the ocean to make a way where there seems to be no way. And then the Israelite went through. That is the God that you and I are serving. The God that Elisha, the God that Elisha served is the God that we are serving now. And so even at this time, He's still on the throne, watching over His children, keeping watching over His children. When we call upon Him, when we go to Him, when we trust Him, with all our hearts, with all our mind, with all our life, soul, if we trust Him, if we rely on Him, He will never fail. He will never fail. He will come and rescue. He will come and heal. He will come and deliver. He will come and provide. Therefore, I want to encourage each one of us that our God is not a dead God. He's the living God. He's the living God. who owns everything, who created this universe, who created you and who created me. He's the master. He's the owner. He's the ruler. He's the provider. He's the source. And so, this miracle that was done in the life of this widow and her 2 sons, during the time of apostasy, because during this time, Samaria, it was a time of apostasy. The people of the northern kingdom, they turned their back against God. The same situation that we are living today. Many people are turning their back against God. And the nation went through famine. Today, we're going through a very hard time, a very difficult time. And instead of trusting God, and instead of relying on Him, we rely on ourselves. We rely on the medicine. We rely on the doctors. We rely on the scientists. And we fail to realize that God is the healer. God is the provider. And so, let's continue to trust Him. Let's continue to depend on Him. Let's continue to rely on Him. That God will continue to work, continue to work in and through us, where He will be glorified. He will be magnified. So may God bless each one of us through this sharing.